Hello, everybody. Let's see. Hello, everybody. Just in case, I don't know, Metal, if you're back yet, if you were wondering why I did it twice, sir, because the little on the YouTube screen, the little mic thing in the tab went out on me, so I had to wait for it to come back so I could.
Oh, okay.
So, but anyways, well, everybody, welcome to the Mikestand. Today is Sunday, June the 22nd, 2025. Of course, meaning that it's time for a weekly look back at comics history. This week we'll be finishing up our coverage of comics that went on sale in May of 1940, with, of course, looking up stuff from United Feature, Syndicate, and Street Smith. Of course, a friendly reminder to everybody, if you haven't already, if you can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people in here to engage, that'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here we talk about grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I will try to and we will try to answer your questions to the best of our ability. With that being said, and before I do get into a little bit more detail about what we'll be doing tonight, let me hand it off to my guest co-host for the evening, Metal from the Vomitorium. Metal,
Howdy. Well, as you just mentioned, I run a show twice a week called the Vomitorium. Sometimes, once in a blue moon, I do another stream on there that isn't on the normal scheduled day, but you can find that over at youtube.com/@vomitoriumlive, where we'll talk about like movies, TV shows, maybe comics and stuff on Monday at 7 Central, or on Thursday we'll talk about like video games, toys, and collectibles at the same time. It's more or less consistent, unless like last week something comes up and we have
7
to.
Central?
Yes, 7 Central. So 5 this time.
Yeah, because you're saying, but usually you're.
I think. Oh, you know what? I'm wrong. I'm thinking of today's schedule, the show we're on. It would be 7 Eastern, 9 Central. That's the one it normally is. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm thinking. Wait a minute. You I know you usually don't go right up against me.
At one point, we would have been live at 7 Central because we used to run it long time back at 6 Central. So it would have been until 7:30, but that was like really conflicting with time. So we just started pushing it back and pushing it back and pushing it back, and eventually we ended up at 9. So even I forget my own schedule at times.
Yeah. So it's 9 Central, 7 Pacific, 10 Eastern.
Yes.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also do a show on Thursday, right?
Yeah, they're both the same time. Super Serial Showtime on Monday and Game Central Junction on Thursday.
All right. Would you like to promote anything else right now?
Oh, yes. I was also saying if people like comics, which I would hope they do. That's why they're here. It'd be kind of weird if they were watching the show and they didn't like comics, unless they're hate watchers. But if you like comics, you can go find stuff I make over at xdynamuschaos.com. Which is where I put up like my web comics and web novels and all kinds of stuff. And occasionally we will be putting out more premium comics like the one that I'm displaying on screen, the Dreamscape Dilemma, whenever that finishes. But all news for that, all publications, everything, you can just find it at that website.
All right. Is there anything more you'd like to promote before we move on?
No, I think that's it.
All right, so let's of course get into why we're all here. So, as I said, tonight we'll be finishing up our coverage of comics that went on sale in May of 1940. We're going to just take a quick kind of brief little run through just summary work of Tip Top Comics number 50 from United Feature Syndicate. due to the fact that unfortunately I was not able to find the actual book to be able to read some of the stories from it. But at least we'll find out, if we were transported to the world of United Feature Syndicate in May of 1940, we'll at least have a pretty good idea of what the experience would be like walking through that world, at least a little bit in terms of, seeing what was going on in that world. And then after that, we'll get into our readings. We'll be reading from Shadow Comics number 5, which will include, of course, The Shadow. Only the Shadow knows. Arn Monroe, and I think we have a few others we'll get into there. So with that all being said, and again, one last friendly reminder, of course, you guys can help out by liking, sharing the screen, see if we get some more friendly people in here to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. So with all that being said now, let's go ahead and get into the meat of the meal here, as it were. So I can grab that. Oops, nope, that was the wrong thing. My bad. Hold on. Mikey goofed. Oh wait, I don't even know why I did that. I didn't even need to. Because there's two of us here. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to blank you out there.
That's fine. They can't see me anyway. It's not like I'm on camera.
Well, yeah, you just put your avatar up.
Yeah. I'm just over here thinking of that line. It's like, who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? The Shadow knows.
Shadow, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, we're gonna take a quick look through here from the Great Comics database here. Tip Top Comics, of course, number 50, but also indexed as Volume 5, number 2. This is the series that started in 1936 from United Features. So, of course, Tarzan was one of the main features of that particular book, from Bern Hogarth, pencils and inks. So that's the cover there. And then the Tarzan story, which was 8 pages, written by Edgar Rice Burroughs, and of course penciled and inked by Bern Hogarth. Adventure Jungle. First line of dialogue. Long had been since Tarzan had called for help. Let's see. We have another one from Rudolph. So Ain't Nature Grand and the Captain and the Kids. And something else I recently found out too about Captain and the Kids. Back in from 1938 to 1939, MGM actually produced a series of cartoons based on the Captain and the Kids, with Billy Bletcher doing the voice of the Captain in that, Martha Wentworth doing the voice of Mama in that. So
I was muted, so you probably missed what I was saying before that, but I was flabbergasted when you said that Edgar Rice Burroughs actually wrote the script to the Tarzan comic. I was like, it's not very often that the writer of the novel also makes the scripts for the comics.
Yeah. Well, that's just what was read off of there. For all we know, they could have taken it from the book itself or whatever, So that obviously, even though they acknowledge that he wrote, quote unquote, wrote the script for the comic, was it that he actually sat there and wrote out the script specifically for the comic, or was it just that they took a portion of the novel and just transcribed it to the comic?
You would still credit the person who adapted it, right? Like the writer who adapted into comic script format for the artist. And I wouldn't be surprised if it actually was him, because I do know that Robert E. Howard also did a lot of the script writing for the comics for his characters at the time that he was still alive. Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess that would be kind of interesting. And of course, Tarzan at the time too was doing, they had him in the newspapers as well.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of his comic strips are showing up in the newspapers as well. So,
I wonder if he ever did any script writing for adaptations of A Princess of Mars as well.
Princess of Mars.
John
Again,
Carter.
huh?
John Carter.
John
The
Carter.
actual name of the book was a Princess of Mars, but we just know it as John Carter pretty much these
Oh,
days. It was by the same guy who wrote Tarzan, as Edgar Rice Burroughs.
oh, okay. Yeah. Let's see. Script, pencils, and inks all done by Rudolph Dirks for this one. Humor, Adventure Children. Tut Tut Inspector. Ain't Nature Grand runs at the last quarter of each page along the bottom. Yeah, so I do know that some of these comics did that where maybe sometimes it would be an even split of half and half. Sometimes it would be like 3-1 split, what
Mm-hmm.
have you. But where they might have two features going along one, and we've seen it too before. Sometimes they'll do a minor one at the top, like with Good Deed Doty, for example, in one of the books I remember, and then have the big chunk of it for the other one. So
Yeah, and sometimes they'll do like the two features as bookends, like a sandwich, and they'll put like a bunch of shorts in between. Like they had a whole bunch of different formattings they would use.
mm-hmm. So let's see, Jim Hardy, Adventure Crime by Dick Morse, seemingly on the road to recovery. See, Ella Cinders from, of course, script by Bill Conselman with Charlie Plum doing the pencils and inks. Adventure drama humor. Look, Hank, here's an ad that says, see, Frankie Doodle from Ben Batford, adventure drama humor, detective mystery domestic. Since Moose Miller, the camp bully, tacked up. Let's see, some other ones here. Fritzy Rich and Phil Fumble by Ernie Bushmiller. Humor domestic. Probably another one that was kind of a half and half kind of thing. I was like, well, Professor, how did I do with my the Kings of England, Strange as It Seems by John Hicks. That was a nonfiction one. That probably would have been like one of those featurette type
Mm-hmm.
features, kind of like more informational than anything else. Okay, Benny.
Yeah, it was probably just somebody taking strange news stories and turning into like comic features. Be like, you won't believe this thing that actually happened.
Right. It's kind of a Ripley's Believe It or Not
Yeah, yeah.
situation. Four Aces, 4 pages, of course. By Hal Forrest, Adventure Aviation. Symes believing that Cactus had killed. We've got Al Capsule Abner here as well. Adventure Humor. This is a much shorter way. Buddy and his pals, Buster Beans, 3 pages. Humor Children. Snubby, there's a big package for you. Top half of page is Buster Beans. The lower half is Bucky and his pals. Little Mary Mixon. I've read some of her features before. They're kind of cute too. 3 pages here by R.M. Brinkerhoff. So, drama, humor, domestic. Jimmy, this is the biggest snowball. So that at least we got a little bit of a taste of what we could find if we were to ever find ourselves in the United Features Syndicate universe in May of 1940. Right, Metal?
I guess.
All
I don't
right.
know if we actually got a proper taste or if we just walked by the cafe for some free smells.
Yeah, I guess you make an interesting point there, but I try to give as much as I can. So anyway, so now of course let's get ready to get into the reading, and we'll be going over Shadow Comics number 5 tonight. As I grab that.
Yeah, let's see what old Lamont Cranston's up to these days. Or I guess those days. It's not really up to much these days.
Hmm. All right, so now that I'm there, pull it up here. I just hope I have a better. I can read these better than last week. Well, one of the features I couldn't really even get through because it was so faded. So
Yeah, well,
right
the
here,
Shadow is one of the most popular characters of his time. If anybody's going to be able to go out of their way to find a good scan of a character, he's going to be one of them.
yeah, Shadow Comics, the all new comics, July 1940, 10 cents. Of course, that's the cover date. Horatio Alger, Iron Monroe, The Avenger, Nick Carter. And there you see, I guess, the shadow right there.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Fly a model airplane and win $25 or 19 other prizes.
I also think for its era, we're going to be in toll for some really good art because the Shadow is always top notch.
The editor's page right here. I guess this is there's a table of contents. In this issue, pages 1 through 8, the Shadow. The Shadow proves by fighting well, organized um, arson ring that crime does not pay. Pages 9 through 16, Horatio Alger, Bruce Wallace, though very poor, demonstrates that being brave and bold brings success. Pages 17 through 24, The Three Musketeers. D'Artagnan is sent on a mission to England to bring back the diamond the Queen gave the Duke of Buckingham. Pages 25 to 31, The Gadget Man. Chick Rush and his gadgets solve the mysteries presented by the Talking Toad. So obviously we're just reading the contents, but we'll get into
Yeah, yeah.
the
But
actual.
this is such a stacked book too. Just looking at the like who's in this. This is like a who's who of its time.
Or at least of this particular company's.
Yeah, yeah. And also like the formatting too, with the table of contents. They're treating this like it's an actual magazine you're reading.
Mm-hmm. So pages 32 to 37, Iron Monroe. Well, as I recall too, back in this time period, they weren't calling them comic books yet. They were still, I think, calling them comic
Comic
magazines.
mags. Yeah. But a lot of these characters here were also pulp characters. So they're this is like the comic equivalent of a pulp magazine almost.
Yeah. So pages 32 to 37, Iron Monroe. The outstanding man saves the Mayan fleet, or the Magian fleet, from the Teflon insane ray and bombs Tefel with two moons. All right. Pages 38 through 42, Nick Carter. Nick Carter's exciting adventure in capturing counterfeiters who operated from shipboard. Pages 43 through 48, The Avenger. The demon who shocked the world with the frosted death powder is finally tracked down by the Avenger. Page 49, Screen Scrapbook. Page 50 to 56, Carrie Cashin. Carrie and Alec are called to Terror Island to locate missing paintings, but find gold instead. Pages 57 to 62, Bill Barnes. Bill Barnes and his pal Shorty enter the air races for the sake, not sale, for the sake of a beautiful girl, but death rides in the cockpit. Oh, now that's a pulp opening if you ever heard one, isn't it? Pages 63 64, time and place. A detective produces the killer. All right. So
I
let's
also
get
changed my mind about something I said before. I will voice in a single story on the condition that I get to be Lamont Cranston.
And Lamont
The
Cranston
Shadow.
is the Shadow, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. I mean,
Okay. Yeah.
I have no problem with that. So, all right. So here we go. The Shadow. A tremendous fire, forth of such mighty blazes, wipes out another small city in the east. Arriving at the scene, the Shadow watches for a thing reported at all the previous conflagrations. It happens again. Human ghouls drag loot from the shouldering ruins and
Loot.
flee.
Yeah. Look at that opening panel too. Like that is just great.
Art-wise, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. Like all of the colors making the fire look like this alive tapestry. You know, like they're just smacking you with it right away.
Yeah, you know something. If you look at that, you see that dark red thing, dark red,
Yeah, the like
like
crumbling
cloud in the
building.
middle there. That almost looks like that thing's. I mean, that looks almost like a body almost.
Yeah.
Like
Because
a
that's
specter.
obviously that's a neighboring building that's already crumbling from the fire, but the way that it's coming down looks like the way a charred body would drop.
Mm-hmm. All right. And I'm just looking to see where everything's going here. Okay.
Mhm. I believe it is the circular panel first.
Yeah. All right. It ain't the cops. Okay. Let's stop and give them the works. The Shadow. It's only junk. We was paid to lug it away. Oh, but behind the fake robbery lies a real one. Only the Shadow can lift the shroud of mystery. It's only junk. We was paid to lug it away. All right. All right. So I guess I'll be the one, and you
Yeah, I
can.
guess.
All right. Look, Lamont. Another fire and safes full of money missing from the ruins.
I'm looking for other angles, Margaret. Lincoln Briel, head of AJ Insurance Company, is missing. So I'm going to Briel's house tonight. I want you to go to Sheffield, a town heavily insured by Ajax, and see what you can learn.
Yeah. I was just about to. I think that was
Yeah, it
Ajax.
looked like it's Ajax. It looked like AJ at first. It's
Yeah,
there's a little.
because somebody in the lettering screwed up.
Yeah.
Alone, the Shadow remolds the face of Lamont Cranston into that of the missing insurance magnate Lincoln Briel. An unseen figure um, ascends the steps of Briel's mansion, unlocks the door with a strange key.
Well, I guess the key's not that strange if it's unlocked, like that. At least the lock thinks it's familiar.
We would. Do you want to? Since he's in
Yes,
the
I will do whoever the shadow is also pretending to be at the time.
Okay, just so we. All right. We wondered why we hadn't heard from you, Mr. Briel.
Yes, I expected to return sooner, Tompkins, but any phone call or put any phone calls to my study.
A trick latch seals the study door as it closes. Posing as Lincoln Briel, the shadow is trapped. The ring of Briel's telephone tells the shadow that he is to hear from the master plotter who trapped him.
Took no time getting rid of that disguise whatsoever, even though he took maybe 30 minutes setting it up originally.
I am Huxley Drone, master of the salamanders. I murdered Briel 2 weeks ago. Therefore, I know that you must be the shadow. As Drone speaks, mighty flames burst from Briel's mansion. Hearing the roar of fire, the shadow mixes 2 chemical powders, hurls them at the door, and blasts it. My servants, the salamanders, have turned this house into a hell which you cannot escape. But as he steps through the door, Droon's servants, the salamanders, have come from the cellar where they started the fire wearing asbestos diving suits, inflated with cooled air. They attack the shadow with murderous blowtorches. Murderous blowtorches. That's an interesting way to say that.
Well, blowtorches aren't usually meant to murder. You're supposed to be like welding with them and stuff, but anything, if used properly, could be used for murder.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here we go. One gone, and another.
Satisfied that the shadow has perished with their comrade, the salamanders go.
The floor.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I should have done the narration. I guess the narration should have came probably afterwards.
Oh, yeah, well. I think that's also part of the panel separation there, because that narration, while it's hovering over both, is kind of part of the second panel. Only smoke here. No flame. What's this? A hose?
Guided by the asbestos hose, the shadow reaches the exit, used by the salamanders, half a block away.
So one of the things I've been enjoying about this so far, other than the fact that I just enjoy the shadow, he's one of the best heroes. So far, this is kind of mirrored reading a shadow pulp or even listening to one of the radio programs, because there's a lot of heavy narration in it. So even as we're going through, we have entire panels just dedicated to narration, so it doesn't feel any different than the shadow you're already used to.
For those who've read the shadow, basically.
Yes.
Yeah. And hello there, Shozo. Thanks for dropping in. If you haven't already, you can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. We'll try to answer the questions to the best ability. I see you gave him a thumbs up there, Metal. So now we shall continue on here. In the town of Sheffield, Margot Lane receives an unexpected caller at the hotel. Miss Lane, I am Huxley Drune. Mr. Cranston wants you to join him at my house.
That doesn't sound good.
Yeah. Lucky I remembered that Bringle mentioned Cranston. Take it easy, sis. The fire will start in the warehouse, burn the old station, and reach the bank. That tank is filled with fuel oil. The sprinkler system will speed the fire, not hinder it. Oh boy, these guys aren't playing, are they?
Well, they'd be kind of bad criminals if they were playing.
Yeah. That car contains dynamite, Mr. Salamander. My salamanders have stolen all they need to blast the bank's foundation. Yeah, look at her facial expressions.
Yeah.
Right there.
It's like, oh my.
Huh?
Just like, oh my. Who would even think of doing such a thing?
Yeah, and who would think of just speaking so openly about it too?
Yeah. Well, at this point, she's such a captive that she might as well be dead as far as they're concerned. So it's like it doesn't matter if they speak openly about everything.
Because eventually they probably are going to, at least that's the way these things are usually set up.
Yeah. It's like you're a hostage until you're not useful, and then we're just going to kill you.
Yeah. The Shadow arriving in Sheffield on the limited finds commotion starting. Fire! Fire! The oil-filled water tank spurts gallons of fuel on the breeze-swept flames. Oh boy, I'm surprised there's not some big explosion happening there.
Yeah.
That much more. The old freight station is tinder. The blaze is blowing straight for the bank. Hey, get off the switcher. Shunting the dynamite car ahead, the Shadow drives for the burning freight station. Shunted ahead, the dynamite car blast the old freight station, literally hurling back the flames from the bank. Well, any comments on the physics of what they're talking about here?
It's not the worst. They're because it basically is using a controlled demolition to try to make like a backdraft, which you could do. I don't know if this is the most practical way of doing it, or like you'd have to be in the area to know how the winds are flying and a whole bunch of stuff. But on paper, it's not the worst idea.
At least this writer seems to have at least maybe a little bit more understanding of scientific theory than some of the ones we've read before.
Or at least, right? Practical physics in general. Yeah.
All right. So anyways, I think I'd get your comments on that because I know we've been picking apart some of their scientific knowledge every time we read one of these stories. Dropping through torn foundations of the old freight station, the Shadow meets the salamanders returning. Let's see. Whoever he was, he fixed him all right. There he goes, out underneath the warehouse.
Take me to drones.
Oh, here we go with the classic damsel in, damsel in distress scenario. Here, you see how they got her? You got her.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Wrist up, tied to a tree.
That'd be horrible for her shoulders too. Like, if you left somebody like that long enough, they would die from like internal circulatory issues before they'd even starve to death, or dehydration or anything. Like they would actually die from circulatory issues first.
Better tell all you know, Margot, before those cords snap. So even though they got her hanging there, they got her hanging over a fire. So it's kind of like, it's the old D if you do, and D if you don't. It's
it's like
burn to death, or as you.
We don't know which part of the system is going to fail first. Whether it's those cords, whether that branch will continue to hold her weight. Like, unless somebody comes to help her, she's just screwed no matter what. Fizz had a question. It says, were the shadows disguises practical at this point, or was it illusion magic? In this particular comic, it was practical. There was actually a panel where he spent time like molding a mask and putting on makeup and stuff to look like the person he was disguised as.
Let's see. She would be getting cooked anyway.
Yeah.
Go on, get going. The shadow!
Yeah, logically, I'm pretty sure the shadow comes first because pointing out that he's coming would rush them to say, come on, get going.
Oh, come on. Oh, yeah. Again, the way they lettered that, I couldn't tell that was an M. That looked
they're just filling space. I like the little silhouette of the shadow in the background, though. It's like perfect.
Yeah. The shadow. Come on, get going.
And certain systems.
Yeah, it's her. But it took. Look out!
Pow shoots a guy.
Yeah, I know. I'm just trying to figure where all the Cranston showed up from somewhere. We'll take Miss Lane home. Cranston showed up from somewhere. We'll take Miss Lane home.
He'll take Miss Lane home.
Oh, yeah. He'll take Miss Lane home. The shadow rescued me, Lamont. If you had only been here to see it.
Clever the way he worked.
Huh?
The Fiji Firewalk. I hope I do meet him someday, Margot.
All right, and there we go with that one. So I guess that's the end of that story. So before we move on to maybe the next story, look to see and Elizabeth Fisher is doing a little promoting himself there. All right. And we'll highlight that for him. Give him a little exposure there. All right, so before we move on to the next story here, of course, overall impressions of the story, Metal.
Oh, I enjoyed it. But I knew I was going to. I don't think I have read a Shadow story I have not enjoyed. It is the cream of the crop.
Hmm. Anything more specific you want to say on it, like in terms of writing, dialogue, art? You know. Anything?
Well, I did say a lot of things while we were reading it, but the art for its era, I think, is also a notch above most other things that we've read. Not just in the line art, but also the use of the color, going for more like expressionist color than trying to make things match what they should be. Right. Like even the fire right in front of us, you have like the yellow flats, but then you have more like expressional strokes of orange or red to give you like that feeling of a blaze. Even like the dust clouds above there from the fire he's trying to extinguish has a multicolor and stuff. It's all about feeling. It's like we want it to be an impactful scene. I think the art is great. I love the use of narration because it matches the pulp style of telling a lot, but they don't overdo it either. You notice there's not too much dialogue or words. We even have panels that are just silent,
Right.
showing off the action. It's a really good balance of pacing.
Yeah, I know.
That I
Like
think is
last
great.
week when I had Apex on, even though I was going to try to get through maybe like 5 stories, I thought I was going to be able to get through the 2 stories that I did read. The one
Yeah.
that I tried that I couldn't read, they just seemed so wordy, and we had so much commentary on them. I barely got through. I think two of the 5 that I had promised, kind of, or that I'd said I'd try to get through. So, but here, yeah, I think it did flow pretty smoothly here. What do you think? What do you think on that? How do you
Oh yeah.
think the flow went?
I think the pacing was excellent. I think they used their page count
Mm-hmm.
almost flawlessly. Like you could probably improve it, given the time or whatever. But that's like editorial retrospective, right? Like they used it well enough.
Hmm. All right. Well, it looks like we have a question here on the show, though. He's, I guess, asking us who would win in a fight, Shadow or Mysterio?
Oh, Shadow. I don't even really have to think that over. Part of it is because of the nature of the characters they are. I mean, the Shadow always wins. Mysterio almost always loses. But even just giving the intellect and how the Shadow chooses to fight, the Shadow is just going to win.
You think in other words, what you're saying is based on things like stratagem, maybe some actual fighting technique.
Yeah.
You would say that the Shadow is just overall superior to Mysterio.
Oh yeah, for sure. Especially because like even if Mysterio tried to do some type of mind games on him or illusions or anything like that, the
Uh-huh.
Shadows fought people who tried to do similar things to him, and at no point has he ever fallen a blunder to anybody else's like magic tricks. Right. In fact, usually the Shadow is almost like a horror monster that villains have to deal with. That's kind of like how he's treated, right? Where usually you're not following the Shadow, even in this story, as we saw. You're usually following the villains, and the Shadow is like a threat following the villains around, right?
like
And
like a shadow creeping upon its prey.
yes, and that's how this was too. We followed we Cranston a little bit in the beginning, but most of the story we were following the what was his name, the salamander, right,
Yeah,
or whatever around, and then we see like the Shadow coming up in his trail on his wake and everything. That's just how he is. He is supposed to be like this unfathomable threat, even though he is technically only a normal person. But
Mhm.
he scares villains by beating them at their own game, like every time.
Okay. Here's I guess kind of a parallel
Yeah.
question to what Jozo was saying. So he asked comparing. He asked simply who would win between the Shadow or Mysterio. Let's take the direct combat issue out of it for a moment.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, um, and let's say because they are similar in styles in terms of um, kind of how solve their crimes and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Who do you think would, like, let's say the Shadow and Batman.
Okay, so the Shadow and his ripoff.
We're both working the same case, not directly fighting each other per se, not like winning a battle or what have you. But let's
Yeah,
say,
because obviously Batman wins that fight for dumb reasons. But well, I'm going to say dumb reasons. It's just Batman's had more stories and he's progressed. So Batman is like, even though he's supposed to be a normal human, he's superhumanly strong. If you were to actually look at the stuff that Batman does.
well, he's more well trained. He's had more,
Yeah.
actually advanced martial arts training. But I wasn't necessarily going for the.
Well, I know that's why you said take the combat out of it.
Take the combat aspect out of it. Let's say the two of them got the same, got like the same case. Got the same, like, let's say they were both given the same case, whether it's like arson case or a murder case or what have you, or
Yeah. Well, I actually have another question to that first. What era of Batman?
That'd be a very
That makes a
interesting.
huge difference.
Yeah, because obviously his methods were different as times evolved. Well, if we're gonna do the whole like multiverse, metaphysical thing here. So even though the Batman has had many incarnations over time, my guess is the Shadow has not. Correct?
More or less. There are a couple different ones, but he's been a much more consistent character.
Right.
Yeah.
So then, if we're to believe that that Lamont Cranston, the Shadow here, is of the Golden Age, then let's go ahead and make a comparison between the Golden Age, or is the Shadow from the Street Smith universe here, to the Golden Age Batman. Let's do it that era.
Okay. Well, in that regard, I believe Batman is at a huge disadvantage, even though like Batman actually started off as a direct ripoff of the Shadow, so you think he should be parallel to it. One of the things that they basically dropped immediately when making Batman is that he doesn't have agents that work underneath him like the Shadow does, which doesn't come up as much in the comics, but you do see in the comics from time to time that he will like spare people's lives and they will become like agents that work for him, informants, or sometimes they'll do other things.
The Shadow.
Yes. So I think the Shadow, if we're comparing to the same era, just has a huge manpower advantage on solving a case for Batman. They're about the same detective, like induction and deduction intellects as each other, but just from manpower alone, I think the Shadow wins.
Well, let's not forget that Batman
Yeah.
did have, granted they were drastically different characters than the ones that most of us probably remember, but he did have Robin the Boy Wonder. He had,
And I know, and Alfred helps too. That's almost nothing compared to the fact that at like any point in time in just the city alone, the Shadow has anywhere between like 50 to 100 agents working in the shadows underneath him. And some of them are like, you wouldn't even know who they are until you meet them. Be like a doctor who he saved the life of 5 years ago. Or there is the hustler down the street who now works for the soup kitchen because the Shadow spared his life and he turned around, but he's still an informant because he sticks to the streets, right? He's got everyone working underneath him.
Yeah. Well, I think too, didn't Batman have kind of that same aspect of, maybe not the same level Shadow did, but
Yeah. Like I said, though, Batman, genuinely, Batman's first issue is basically a ripoff of an issue of the Shadow, like frame for frame. You could go panel for panel. You can find the same panels from it. It was like a B issue for the Shadow. But they kind of weaned off and dropped that stuff almost immediately. Like he started out with it, but they got rid of all because they wanted to cut all the connections to the Shadow.
Well, and since we are comparing like the Golden Age characters, the two, because I know that the Earth 2 Batman, or Golden Age Batman, whatever you want to call him, maybe didn't have the same level of training. he still had an extensive amount of training, but he didn't, maybe not to the same level that like later versions like the silver or modern, silver, bronze, or modern age did.
I think though, once you get to like mid to late Silver Age, or like whenever he starts interacting with the Justice League directly, right, when that gets formed, then I think you start getting to a Batman whose resources and his deduction level is just out of the ballpark of the more grounded Shadow from back in the day.
Yeah. But, I'm going back to the point of where we're talking about like the combat aspect of it. Now I am bringing the combat aspect of it back in.
Yeah, combat wise.
Yeah.
It's in Golden Age, I think they're about the same as each other because Batman was like basically designed to be the Shadow. Right. Silver Age, though, is where Batman just starts becoming too much for the Shadow to handle.
Yeah, because my point I was getting at is I think starting in the Silver Age, you start seeing him training in more disciplines of martial arts. Like I think in the Golden Age he would have basically been your standard, person where he would have had basic hand-to-hand combat skills, some boxing, some wrestling, but nothing like whereas in the starting in the Silver Age he'd have some more extensive training and things like.
And you also have to scale him to the people he's fighting at the time, right? During the Golden Age, he is a lot like the Shadow, where for the most part his villains are human. There might be the peak of a human. You might get somebody who's like a circus strongman in an issue or something like that, but they're still pretty much human. When you get to the Silver Age, though, you start getting people who have like inhuman levels of strength, and Batman's still like hurting them.
We did have Golden Age versions of his classic rogues galleries, but
the Golden Age versions of them were also still more grounded in street level at that time.
Right. Like the Joker, I think in the Golden Age was more of a psychotic killer type, but he's still human. I think like the Penguin and Riddler were actually introduced late in the Golden Age, whereas they were pretty much right there almost from the beginning in the Silver Age. But the Golden Age, like I know. It's kind of funny because when I remember going back when I would read the DC stuff on my own, the Riddler was not even introduced until like extremely late into the Golden Age. It was like 1947, 48. It was almost to that point where they were already starting to make the transition from Golden Age to Silver Age with that.
Well, you could take the Rogues Gallery, right? Solomon Grundy shows up in 44, Golden Age villain. But Solomon Grundy in 44, well, like I said, he's maybe the equivalent of a circus strongman, right? He's strong, but he's not like how Solomon Grundy becomes later on. Though, I mean, Grundy's strength is inconsistent every single time he resurrects. But like Silver Age Grundy sometimes throws Superman around when Superman shows up to fight him too. So it's like these are completely different characters in different ages.
Yeah, the funny thing is though is that the Golden Age Solomon Grundy wasn't even really a Batman villain to begin with. Even though he was in Gotham, he was actually originally a Green Lantern villain. He was actually somebody who was kind of an arch enemy of Alan Scott at that point.
Yeah, I'm just using him as like a placeholder example because he does show up in Batman during the Golden Age and how different this character is in different ages.
Yeah. But, so let's see. Batman was fighting the same types of villains as Superman, aliens, and scientists during the Silver Age. Well, yeah, we do know that. We're talking more about his Golden Age incarnation, though.
Well, that's why I said, like, Golden Age, I think he, for combat, him and Shadow are kind of parallel to each other. But once you get to the Silver Age, they can't fight. Like, Batman just wins. It's not even close.
Well, the point I was making about that, so I think starting in the Silver Age, Batman was trained in more versions of martial arts, whereas, as you said, they were probably pretty equal to each other because they basically had probably the same fighting skill set, basic hand-to-hand combat, some boxing, some
Well, and they also have the same build, right?
Yeah.
Like they're literally the same size and weight as each other.
But then you do get to the Silver Age, and you start seeing Batman, being trained in other martial
my
arts,
point was with the Silver Age,
like karate, kung fu.
that part doesn't matter,
all that,
right? Like my point is that part doesn't matter at all because Batman's physical stats are also just higher to where it didn't matter what Cranston knew, right? Like Silver Age Batman could punch a hole in a brick wall.
I didn't think he was that strong, but then again, that's probably me from watching like the live action '60s Batman or some of the Hanna-Barbera cartoons. I never thought too much of that, but all right. Well, I mean, that was an interesting discussion, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, so I guess we can move on to the next story then. Let's see which ones that grabbed my attention here. So we have The Brave and the Bold by Horatio Alger.
Mind you, too, like that type of thing is just a complete circumstance of Batman has to be able to be strong enough to punch a hole in a brick wall because he's being put up against people that he can hurt. And if he wasn't that strong, he wouldn't be able to hurt them. Right? It's like an issue with power scaling that happens when you start mix and matching different heroes, villains against each other. Like, well, like that is a logical conclusion you'd have to come to.
Musketeers, just so we can show everybody some of the. What do you I don't know if you're scanning the art here as we're running along this, but what do you think?
Some of it's pretty solid.
Yeah. A Gadget Man story, The Talking Toad. Actually, this one does seem a little interesting. Maybe I guess
I like the Toad's design.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So, did you want to continue reading, or did you want to just go back to doing commentary?
I'll go back to commentary.
All right. The Talking Toad, a Gadget Man mystery. Let's see. Chick Rush with a. Yeah, I'm gonna just go to the next story because that's.
Is it too small for you?
Yeah. Even though the other stuff is all nice and big, that part was just too small there. A little too small.
That seems to be the only small thing in the story. If you want me to just read that opening narration, we can do it.
All right. Why don't we do that then? And then that Iron Monroe right after it, so we'll go to that right after.
Okay. I've got it full screen so I can see it. Click Rush, with a mind peculiarly adapted to mechanical and scientific gadgets, came to New York with a trunk full of various devices which he had invented to fight crime. Police officials, however, did not like his odd gadgets and looked upon him as a wacky inventor. Just as Click Rush was disgruntled enough to pack up and go back home, he received a mysterious package, which, when opened, revealed the Talking Toad.
Yeah, but then, as we know from a lot of Golden Age stories, a lot of times police do find that the police are not always too happy with the vigilantes trying to help.
For the most part, you shouldn't be.
Yeah. Click Rush, opening his office one fine spring morning, finds to his amazement a very odd receptionist, a 3-foot metal toad on his desk. Hello, you look like a party favor. Who left you here? It sat on his desk. Under it was a paper, the half of a $10 bill, and a note reading, "Put an electric bulb in the toad's mouth."
It's an odd design.
Click being one of the inventive sort, had a portable device in his back office and X-rayed the toad. I hear a faint click of a thermostat. It means only one thing. The little toad is a wired radio transceiver. It will take the high frequency waves off the electric light wires as an ordinary radio. Then the toad said, "Hello, you are Mr. Rush. I am Buffa. I live on slugs of the human variety." Ribbit,
But if
ribbit,
it's a mechanical toad, why does he live on slugs?
Again, we're back to the the limited scientific understanding of some of these authors.
Yeah.
Sure, Buffa, I'm crazy too. I'm thinking of hiring a private detective to investigate crime. Don't you want to work for me with the other half of the $10,000 bill? So it's $10,000 bill, not the. I thought that said $10 bill, but
No, that's a comma with 3 more zeros after it.
I didn't catch that. Interesting. But I'm not an expert private detective. If I solve anything, it'll be the mystery of who you are. Goodbye. But you might read in the newspapers about the stolen stainless steel fish. Rush went out and bought a paper. On the front page flared this headline: "Stainless steel fish stolen! The fish, 1,000 in number, were being shipped from Shanghai to a man named Patrick O'Reilly in Dublin, Ireland."
Thinking about it too, I think
Uh-huh.
that $10,000 bill would be a very rare note. It was right because it's the highest denomination the U.S. ever had, but they stopped printing them in 34, so they were done being printed well before this comic came out, and they stopped circulating. They were withdrawn from circulation in like 69, right? So there already weren't a lot of them going around anyway.
Right. Well, I mean, could you imagine trying? Could you imagine trying to make change for a $10,000 bill?
Oh yeah, especially with how much like $10,000 was at the time.
Yeah, I mean, you go into, let's say, a hamburger place, right? At a
Yeah.
time when hamburgers were probably like 5 cents, and the guy hands you a $10,000 bill. I could just see the hamburger chef going, "Oi, you gotta be kidding me! Don't you have anything smaller?"
Yeah. I mean, that'd be like walking into one now and handing, which this doesn't exist, a $230,000 bill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. While Rush was reading this, the door opened. A very beautiful girl stood there. "Hello, invite me in, will you?" "Come in. I'm glad you came. Glad to find something that looks sensible, something more sensible than stainless steel fish. Why did you come here?" "I wanted to tell you where you could find the stainless steel fish." Oh boy! What do you think of how they're doing it with the stories thus far?
I think they're trying to drive him insane.
Oh boy, I think we're going to have a very interesting discussion when all is said and done. What's your name? June. June Davis. Then Rush, excusing himself for the moment, goes to the outer office where there is a machine connected to the girl's chair. Hmm, interesting. She's telephoning that I'm interested in steel fish. I'll check on that. Oh, by the way, Miss June, didn't a man phone and say that I was interested in steel fish? Yes, and he said he was Buffa. Sounded crazy.
Yeah.
Ah, well, never mind. I am interested in fish, and I will call tomorrow at whatever address you give. Meet me tomorrow at 42 Englewood Road at 3. Click escorts her to the elevator, and on a pretense excuses himself. He doubles back and by way of the back stairs. A bit of fresh air won't hurt me. Let's see where we go from here. Follow that cab. Losing June's cab in traffic jam in a traffic jam. Click dashes into a telephone booth. Into a telephone booth. This is Sergeant Harrison. I'm on a murder case. Want to know who lives at Washington 22147? Yeah, I think impersonating police officers was
That has always been a crime, ever since police officers were a thing in almost every society. So
What was that? I'm sorry, I didn't catch.
I was saying impersonating a police officer has always been a crime in pretty much any society that has had official police officers.
Yeah. That sergeant is a Mr. Patrick O'Reilly of 112 North Davis Street. Click got into his car or into his cab and went to the address given there. He sneaked into the house by a basement window. This is a house of mystery. Well, let's see what it leads to. So these are the well-known stainless steel fish. Much heavier than I suspected. I wonder, could there be something more to these stainless steel fish than maybe just the simple fact that they're stainless steel fish?
Maybe.
Be interesting to see. Because based on, there seems to be some foreshadowing here going on. Something tells me that there's more to this than meets the eye. What would you say? What would you say of my assessment there?
Well, that's usually a safe bet, given that why would they write it otherwise?
Wonderful specimen, don't you think? Won't you join us in the next room? Delighted. There, Click saw the girl, who was in his office, and a large leathery man. Both were lashed to their chairs. All right, so in this case, okay, so granted, today when we hear the word lash, we obviously a different connotation. What do you think what do you think the meaning of the word lash is here? Metal.
Well, Lash means to fix something to something,
Or
right?
tie
Like
something
to
up?
rope it or whatever. Which I happen to know this because my favorite movie is A Knight's Tale, and there's a part where William is so injured he can't hold his lance up, and he tells Watt, "Lash it to me arm."
Hmm. Okay, well, actually, the way I've heard the term lash before
Yeah,
is like when you're giving lashes.
yeah, and it's because both of them refer to the rope used in it, right? A lashing is like a roping.
Yeah. Well, or a whiplash, maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
Crack of a whip. That's where because that's I think what most people. I think when people hear the word lash, I think they'd be thinking more like the whiplash as opposed to. But here, yeah, it means kind of tie up or something like that. Hmm.
Firmly, specifically, like it is not loosely. Lash means to tie something firmly.
Yeah. We were trapped, and he's going to kill all of us. My friends, these fish are gold. They're so prepared. Um, they're so prepared that they can get by in any custom house in any country. They're saying gold there. What do you think that they may literally be maybe just somehow cast in stainless steel, or do you think it's more of a figurative statement that he's making there, saying that they're gold?
Well, he says so he can get by any custom house. I want to say that they actually are gold, and the stainless steel is probably just some type of like foiling or leafing on top of it to make it look like steel, because gold can't get through customs without several checks or anything like that.
Hmm.
Yep, foil. There we go.
Huh? Yeah.
Oh no, he's using them as a foil. Different use of the word. Okay, I thought
Yeah.
maybe he just had foiling on it.
Yeah. Hmm. I use them. I use them as a foil. I am merely telling you this because the old house is vacant, and no one will find you here until I am safely away. Click, then ask for a large cigarette. He is granted one. Okay, so why would you give him a cigarette? I mean, if he lights that thing up, he's got an instant weapon. You would think.
It's because they're stupid. That's why. You know, there's a stupid villain
Yeah, they
who
gotta
doesn't
be
understand.
stupid.
Because even like,
But then again, the writers I don't think have much luck because if he's asking for a cigarette, that would imply that he has a way to light it. So if he's got a way to light it, if he's got like matches or a lighter or something like that,
yeah,
why would he
or the
swap that
villain's
out?
gonna light it for him. But it's like standard police procedures. If you have somebody detained in
Uh-huh.
custody at all, is that you can't let them smoke or drink during the time, specifically smoking, because of the hazard it is not just to them but to you.
Hmm. Yeah. Always a perfect host. Ha 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 ha. Yeah. As he strikes the match, there's a deafening report for the match was a cleverly molded colored chemical. Crash! Two down and two to go. Yeah, I had a feeling something like that was going to
Mm-hmm.
happen when he asked for the cigarette. Criminal, we know from Batman that criminals are a cowardly and superstitious lot, and we've also learned over time that criminals can be a very stupid lot as well, aren't they? There, metal.
Well, especially the underlings more than anything else. But
Mhm.
if you were smart, you wouldn't be committing crimes.
Yeah, yeah, that's probably true. I guess that is true, actually. In the fight that followed, Click held one crook's neck and then let go. The man became doped. which probably means like kind of stupid or or stupefied or what have you. He then closed with O'Reilly, the chemically filled hypodermic needle strapped to his waist, soon sent O'Reilly to the land of Nod. Also, where dreams are to be had, right?
Yeah. Fitzjoseph says, well, smart people do commit crimes. They're called con artists. Most con artists don't actually commit crimes. They abuse the system. They find loopholes. So they're doing something awful but legal more often than not. Right. That's actually what makes them smart, is that they're finding loopholes and they're conning people.
The rabbit or organic toad, or is it a collar a cannibal? Why is bad guy themed around metallic animals?
To be honest, when he said metallic fish at first, or stainless steel fish, I didn't think they'd be like actual fish, like decor or something like that. I thought there would be the other type of fish, which are usually wooden, the instrument, but they do make stainless steel versions of the fish instrument. But no, it turned out they were just regular fish.
Surprise, the machine isn't shaped like a snake. Obviously, this is why cops don't give bad guys ciggies, which I guess goes back to the comment you made.
Oh, yeah. It is procedure that you don't give it to them.
Well, smart people do, and that's the one you just kind of answered.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like me. I've hustled people. Never committed a crime during it because I'm not stupid, but I've hustled people.
A pretty mess of fish, I must say. And they're not stainless by a long shot, but they'll keep till the wagon comes. Commissioner Click Rush speaking. Send a wagon to 112 North Davis Street. There's 4 specimens here that I know you'll want for your collection. I like how he said that. Okay, Click. I'll send a squad. You stand by. After his catch is safely booked as guest of the city, Click pays a visit to his old friend, the commissioner. Now that was his quaint little racket. These fish were really pure gold, dipped in a secret metal coating that only he could remove. He'd ship them abroad as works of art to his estate in Ireland. Almost sounds fantastic, Click. Then, by a chemical bath process, which he alone knew, he'd make the fish shed their skins, so to speak, and sell the gold to the highest foreign bidder. So, okay, so he was basically trying to smuggle these out of the country, basically.
Yep.
Click, my boy, you've done our government a most praiseworthy favor. Skip the medals, Commissioner. I'll be seeing you. Now to check on the talking toad. Back in his office, Click places the electric light into the mouth of the toad and says, I have made a good choice. Would you like to continue our arrangement? I'm sorry. I have made a good choice. Would you like to continue our arrangement? What arrangement have you in mind? You know that this town is overridden with crime. Don't you? Don't you click rush? Only too well, Buffa. Well, with your cooperation, I intend to clean up a lot of these thug nests. Thug nest, that's an interesting term. Wouldn't you say, Metal?
Well, they do sometimes refer to like crime infested areas, infested as like hives of villainry and stuff like that. So nest hive infestation. They're critters that you don't want around, right? Pests, vermin.
Mm-hmm. I will call your attention to crimes which I think need solving. I pay you. I pay you. Isn't that enough? Look. Look in your morning mail for the other half of the $10,000 bill. Okay, so here's my question, though. Here's my question, because I don't exactly know how this would work, though, but doesn't tearing money in half like that basically nullify it?
Not necessarily. You can repair a bill. That is an option as long as you bring it to a bank and the bank can certify that this is supposed to be the whole bill. It's actually banks, part of their job is to recycle bills. A bill is actually also still useful if it is more than 50% of the original bill. That way, that tearing it in half makes a bill useless because then you could possibly have two bills. But if it's more than half, then they'll still count the bigger part as the original bill. I've seen some people tape bills together and banks will take them. It's like, yeah, this is clearly halves of the same bill. I've also known people have, that's like rare, sewn bills back together. But as long as you take it to a bank, so the bank operates it, they're the ones that will acknowledge that this is the bill. They're the ones, you can't use it at like a store or some other business or something like that. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So that would make sense then. The next morning's mail. Well, Al, he kept his word. Click Rush receives instructions from the talking toad to solve startling crimes. See the next issue of Shadow Comics. All right. So, Metal. Overall impressions of this story.
It's all right. It was a little more convoluted, but it had pretty good pacing.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of agree with Vischozo. Why did somebody send him, particularly the mechanical frog? Maybe that's something that'll be revealed in later issues of it. But aside from that, it does seem kind of like out of nowhere. It's like, yes, this wacky inventor guy who did want to solve crimes, but the police don't want anything to do with him. We're going to send him this omniscient frog that's actually really just a receiver device to get him to solve the crimes for us. It's not a bad idea. It's just like the setup hits you so fast. It's like whiplash.
Yeah, with the fact that you're bringing that up to that part of it, where he's getting instructions from the toad, and the toad's basically a receiver, right? You know what it kind of reminds me of a little bit, I think, but the only thing is that an actual human, I think. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Charlie's Angels, I think. Didn't they have a similar situation?
Oh, like Bosley being there and receiving Charlie's stuff with the angels all around there. And he's like, okay, you heard Charlie, get to work.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just starting to think that's probably seems similar to that.
I like the concept of Charlie, though, and just like never ever getting to see what he actually looks like.
Yeah. And the idea of having three beautiful women at his beck and call probably did bring a lot of fans to the to the series, right?
Oh, for sure. Obviously.
All right.
I
So,
mean, Farrah Fawcett, you can't go wrong there.
all right. Yeah. So so we got two stories. So at least one. Well, at least one more. We're at like hour 25 here. So might be able to get through at least one more, if not two more here, as we continue on here. Ian Monroe, the outstanding man. Ian Monroe of Jupiter and Spencer Carlyle, rich young ship owner, are in another space helping the Magians, descendants of the survivors of Earth's lost continent, Mu, in their war with the Teflons, the ancient devils of Earth. Iron's new science has given the Magians great aid. A fleet is on the way to destroy Tefel, led by Iron's ship, thousands of miles from their objective. The crews of the Magian fleet go mad, kill one another, while their ships, out of control, destroy themselves. What new Teflon weapon can this be? Look at the design of the devil right there on that lower on that.
Oh yeah, that's very classical design. Bigfoot with horns, basically.
His great mind, less easily affected, for Iron Monroe gives the position of the mysterious force to the following ships behind him. Calling all following ships, turn back toward Magia immediately. Teflon field of force beginning at his best friend is affected. Spence, snap out of it. Hurts me more than it hurts you, pal. With a last mighty effort of will, Iron Monroe turns the ship and speeds out of the death zone. If I can only hold out long enough to head us out of this. Feel better, Spence? Wooey! Did we run into a supernova iron? No, you got a little off your axis and tried to beam me. So did the rest of the boys. What caused it? I can only guess the Teflons have set up some kind of a vibration field. I'll call the fleet commander. Did you just knock on a piece of iron or something like that? Like a metal?
Me?
I thought I just heard like a hollow metal sound or something like that.
I did not.
All right, it just seemed kind of
Wait,
strange.
maybe I moved my desk because sometimes if the desk moves, the vibration will go into the Yeti, the microphone itself, and the inside of the microphone is metal, so maybe that chain vibration caused a sound I didn't hear myself, but I did not knock on anything.
Okay, it kind of sounded like, kind of like as if, like, let's say there was a hollow like iron or metal barrel or something like that,
Yeah.
and like somebody may have knocked on it or something like that. So that's why I kind of was wondering. Or
No.
I know you're from Texas, so you probably had some of these growing up, or you probably saw some of these growing up. How some people would have in their backyard, they set up like an old oil barrel, tied to trees or something like that, and like set it up like it was some kind of like bowl to write on. I don't know if you've.
No, I've never had one of those or seen one of those personally. I've had oil barrels in backyards though that we've used for like getting rid of trash. You know, you
Yeah,
just burn stuff in there. But I have had oil drums.
yeah. Well, then that's a term I guess
Yeah,
I
yeah.
would. Uh, well, I had a Hispanic babysitter. Her family had some of those. They were big into the rodeo scene. So
Hmm. Oh, I mean,
yeah.
I like rodeo, rodeo, but no, I've never had that personally.
Hmm. We had no warning, Iron Monroe. A full third of our ships are unmanned and destroyed. As for the rest, morale is low. Back on Magia, a small Teflon fleet attacks with still another new weapon. This is a very strange bombing raid. No high explosives, no torpedoes. I wish Ian Monroe and Spencer Carlisle were back with the fleet. Better go back to Magyar Utha Kol. I just had to report that the Teflons um, are bombing the planet again. Carlisle and I will investigate this field the Teflons have projected. Signing off. I hope the bombing raid didn't do much damage. Um, anti-rail anti-rails on Magia. Um, think of her later, Don Juan. Man, the detectoscope. Um, we ought to be near the edge of that field again. And after hours of painstaking work at the instruments, um, I've got it, Spence. Um, high wavelength, the metal in our ships induces the vibration, which is supersonic. It works on the inner ear, drives men mad. Hmm.
Yeah, I could see that driving a lot of people mad.
Kind of like the dripping of a leaky faucet, maybe.
Sort of, I think more of like on old ships, like naval ships or big steel ships, or in some factories, or whatever. There's like like a constant whir of a machine that's not functioning properly in the background. It's
Mm-hmm.
almost white noise that you can't hear it properly, but your brain is still picking it up. Can
Mm-hmm.
drive people insane.
Yeah. Looks as though Tefel got the best of us this time, Andar Minnow. But I think I can dope out an interrupter to nullify that field. And to rail.
Yeah.
And
Except in this case, the actual whirring's inside your head because it's vibrating your inner ear directly, which is way worse. It's going to upset your balance. It's going to do all kinds of things.
How serious was that bombing raid? Not very. Apparently, we don't know yet. You don't know? No, the blue flames that were started by their bombs can't be extinguished. A blue fire that will not go out. What strange weapon is this?
Yeah, that is weird. Like maybe it's actually just a plasma field generated from like a high electromagnetic field with running a current through it, igniting like the nitrogen or stuff around it. You could do that because you can't really just put out plasma. Really, it's too hot. You'd have to extinguish the field itself. But Fischoso had a question. I don't know if he answered. He said, "I'm back. What are we reading? We're reading Iron Monroe, which is actually an adaptation of, I guess you might call it like a pulp novel. It was a 5-part miniseries back in, I think it was Astounding Magazine or Astounding Stories. That was it. Called The Mightiest Machine. And this is a comic adaptation of it that was run into Shadow Comics. It's a great story. I've never read it myself, but it's one that if you're into sci-fi spaces, you're kind of just aware of, because it's like the first sci-fi story to use like all the modern concepts we like artificial gravity, faster than light travel, warp drives, going through wormholes, and things like that. Stuff that like wasn't even around yet. Night vision goggles before night vision goggles were a thing.
All right, so I guess we'll continue on here. We'll continue on here. Actually, I do need to step away. I do need to go off camera here for a quick moment.
Yeah.
I'll be right back. If you want to talk to it shows on the chat there for a moment or do any promoting, just you can kind of go until I can come back. I'll be right back.
Yeah, I actually probably should read it. You know, The Mightiest Machine has been on my backlog of like historical stuff that has influenced almost all of fiction forever, and I just have never gotten around to reading it. I should bump that up. It's a little hokey, just because of its age. You wouldn't. It's not as concrete as like reading Jules Verne, but it's pretty good from what I've heard. I've only heard positive reviews of it. And oddly enough, it is very much, you would call it like a superhero story. Maybe he's called a space hero. He kind of even, I'm going to say he started the genre of space heroes. There's a couple other ones around the same time, but as a space hero, he did establish a lot of the modern genre of science fiction. So I should get around to it. It's also weirdly is this character is currently in DC. Around the late 80s, Roy Thomas reimagined him as a DC character. Which also makes it really hard to find information on this guy if you don't know where he came from. Because if you were to just Google Iron Monroe, you're just going to see a bunch of the Roy Thomas versions of him. And it would take you a while to get down to like, oh, The Mightiest Machine. Okay. But I do believe this would be his first comic appearance right here. So it's always interesting. See, so Trisha says, I'm not necessarily going to have artificial gravity in all of my space stories because comics don't need real actors. No, they do not. They just need consistent storytelling, more or less. Doesn't have to be completely consistent. But yeah, for some stories, it would make sense to have artificial gravity. For others, it's like, well, if it's not necessary, why even bother, right? So that's what the Brown Hornet from Fat Albert was parroting? Maybe. I don't remember the Brown Hornet from Fat Albert. I like Fat Albert. It's just been a really long time since I've watched Fat Albert at all. Maybe. It could be. I find it weird that Arn Monroe, which his actual name is Arn, Aarn. Iron's like a nickname because it sounds close to Arn. He was born on Jupiter, right? Which I guess maybe back then when did we know that Jupiter was a gas giant? I need to figure that out. Because like the whole idea is that because of the planet's intense gravity, his physical attributes are higher. And also somehow his intellectual attributes, I guess maybe because your blood had to learn to pump harder. But like, did we at the time that he was invented, which was December of 1934, was when his first novelized version came out. Did we know back then that Jupiter was a gas planet? Let me look.
All right, so I'm back now. I had to take care of a couple of things here real quick, but anyways, let's get back to this story then. So let's see.
Yeah, apparently that was first observed in the 1600s. This guy's crazy.
Yeah, we can't ignore that blue fire any longer. Spence, is it burning people's fingers? Iron Monroe starts work on the interrupter field, but we can't laugh this off, feller. Those bombs they dropped, they've doomed Magia. Look, here's the report I've drawn up about the situation. The atmosphere of Magia, compared to Earth, contains some 60% of nitrogen. Nitrogen is an inert gas. We breathe it in and out with no effect. It will not burn except under specific circumstances. But compounds of nitrogen are very active. The Teflon bombs have released a nitrogen catalyst. It takes no part in the reactions, but its presence causes the nitrogen to combine with oxygen to burn.
Well, yeah, I mean, that would have to be N2O or nitrous oxide, which is pretty dangerous. There's actually a lower content of nitrogen than Earth because we're like 78% nitrogen in our atmosphere.
Do you
We
see
just breathe it
iron?
in and out all the time.
Do you see iron? The whole atmosphere will burn itself up. The rivers and seas will turn into nitric acid. Air will be a poisonous gas. The devil.
Honestly, nitrous oxide's non-flammable. What is nitric acid? Is that even flammable? Let me look at that. Yeah. Well, no, because so nitrous oxide is non-flammable at room temperature, but nitric acid, which requires hydrogen, which is why I didn't think of nitric acid. They said it was only bonding with the oxygen. They didn't say it was bonding with hydrogen as well. Let me see if that's flammable. It's also not flammable. Almost nothing that combines nitrogen and oxygen together is flammable. Yeah. Nitric acid is poisonous, though. So if they're just trying to choke people, that's an option.
Spencer Carlisle is a great Spencer Carlisle, a great chemist, is right. Slowly, the air is becoming poisonous. The moisture in the air turns to acid. The air to deadly red-brown fumes of nitric oxide and other nitro compounds. Now you notice how everybody there is wearing red and blue there.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Iron and Spence confer at the laboratory. Isn't there anything you can do, Spence? I hope so. The whole atmosphere is being burned, changed to poison. Hello,
Yeah, I think the thing that's throwing me off is that burned is just not the right term there.
What would you say the right term is then?
Transmuted, maybe, like there's a chemical process going on. There would definitely be an energy exchange, but burning in general implies that there is some type of combustion happening, but this is a non-combustive material.
All right. Hello, Aunt Rail. How are things on the outside? Worse. Come with me and we'll make a survey flight.
It's
The pe-
acid burns. Yeah,
the pe-
the body, if you want to say the body's burning because it's causing burning, but the atmosphere isn't burning. These type of burns are two different words, right? So one burn is referring to a chemical process for combustion. The other burn is an effect that can happen on the human body, right?
hmm,
So we can't use the effect of what acid does to the human body to talk about the atmosphere. So that's only talking about what does the word burning mean chemically, and chemically there's no burn happening.
hmm.
This is me being pedantic and kind of a nerd here, but it is something that's bothering me.
Well, I mean that's fine because
Yeah, yeah,
you're giving us more insight into
yeah, yeah.
reasoning and logic, and that it does spark. I mean, look, you and
Part of it is language, right? That we have a word that looks the same. We call them like a homogram, which a homogram is when it is spelt exactly the same, but it has a different meaning. So this word is used in different ways, and it's not being used in the right way right here.
hmm, all right. The people of Maggia have been driven underground, but still they die as the gas seeps through the rocks. Why is it snowing? Why is it snowing, Iron? That isn't snow. It's solid nitric acid. Um, it will burn flesh like white hot iron.
Yeah, no, that is the right use of putting burn though, because we're talking about flesh at this point.
Right. Um, so um, could nitric acid then be maybe, or at least this form right here? Is that like dry ice? Maybe.
Sort of. Okay, so there is an issue here, right? Um, which the dry ice that we normally talk about is solid carbon dioxide. So that's actually CO2. It's not nitric oxide. There is nitrogen-based ice, right? But he's often confusing a lot of terms. So there's three different chemicals in this whole situation. Nitric oxide is just NO, right? That's just a single nitrogen and a single oxygen with a double pair bond, right? There's also NO2, which is nitrous oxide. And then there's HNO2, which is the nitric acid that they were talking about before.
Hmm.
Of the three of them, only one of them can
Whoa. Uh-oh. Did something just happen?
actually cause the burning, and that is the Nori track if you breathe it in. Um, the other two, though, the nitrous oxide and the nitric acid, are mostly innate. You could get some
Um,
issues from nitric oxide, but you can't get a lot from nitrous oxide either.
excuse me. Can
Where
you?
did you lose me?
Yeah, well because you cut out there for a moment.
Okay.
So can you kind of just go over that what you just said again? Because you kind
Okay.
of sound like you
What I was
cut
saying
out.
is that there are three possible chemicals being involved here, only two of which are named, right?
Mm-hmm.
One chemical that was named, the one in that previous box, was nitric oxide, which is NO, right? One part nitrogen, one part oxygen, double pair bond. Then you have nitrous oxide, which was not named yet, but it would definitely be bonding in the atmosphere, which is N2O, right? That's completely innate. That is uh, nitric acid, which is the other one that was added, which is HNO2.
Did you stop speaking for a moment there?
No, no, no. I'm still speaking. I don't. Am I cutting out for you specifically?
Yeah, because that's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Because you just cut out. I don't know why, but hmm,
Everything looks good on my end. I don't know.
yeah. Try
Um,
one more time, please. I'm sorry.
okay, that time I saw the screen refresh. I don't know what the issue is here. It's probably my connection to StreamYard.
Okay, that could be it.
Yeah. But more or less, what I was trying to say is if it was nitric acid, that burns flesh. The other chemicals they're talking about are mostly innate with hardly any side effects. Yeah.
Okay.
So they're confusing a bunch of terms around over and over again.
Which, as we've talked about before, of course, may be due to their just general lack of scientific knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Or that maybe they heard something and it sounded cool, but they don't know how it actually operates.
All right. Well, I'll continue on with we're already at the 150 mark here.
Yeah.
This is going to have to be the last story because we still have, of course, this day in each history and all that to get to. So, plus, our usual closing stuff with this stuff. So I'm going back to the laboratory. Something must be done about this. Upon landing, they see Spence running wildly toward them. At last, I've got it. Spence, what's the matter? Later, gallons of the new chemical are manufactured. The experiment is a success. You see, this liquid breaks down the catalyst, prevents the oxygen and nitrogen combining. Spence, you're a wonder.
You
really want to say something, don't you?
Yeah. So while that stuff doesn't combine a lot naturally in the atmosphere, there is small trace amounts of those chemicals in the atmosphere anyway. We also need some of those chemicals in our body to function. We just don't want them in like high quantities floating around in the air around us. I'm just thinking there could be some side effects from putting something in there that is preventing oxygen and nitrogen from bonding. If it simply just gets rid of the catalyst that is causing the problem, that's one thing. But I don't want anything that's preventing them from bonding.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. One of the reasons you don't get a lot of that in the atmosphere, by the way, is not because they can't bond in the atmosphere. It's because most of the free floating oxygen and nitrogen is already combined with itself. So you get double pairs of nitrogen or triple pairs of nitrogen, double pairs of oxygen, which is what we breathe. We mostly breathe O2, or triple pairs of oxygen, which is the ozone in the higher atmosphere. So it's because they're already mostly satisfied that those bonds don't happen. So we don't want to prevent them from bonding with each other. We just want to stop the catalyst from doing this weird thing.
All right. So now getting back to the article, unless you have something more you want to add.
No, that's it. I was just like a weird, please just get rid of the second half of that sentence and we're fine.
All right. Immediately, the chemical is carried into spaceships. Hurry, men. Get those flasks aboard. We'll drop them from the sky. The high-flying ships drop the chemical, and the blue flame is killed. After them come ground crews with sun-powered heat guns. They blast the snow, and it breaks down into air again. The rivers of acid are subjected to great heat, and the resulting steam condenses and turns back to water and air. Iron meets with the council. Andar Minnow, men can breathe the outside air again. The people are saved. That moon, you see there, is nearly hollowed out. I have a plan to destroy all of Tefel. Amazing plan, but how? We will power the moon with transpon beams and drop it on Tefel.
Wait, what? What? Why? Why would that be your solution?
Well, let me read that again because obviously I like the reaction you came to. We will power the moon with transpond beams and drop it on Temple. Okay, so obviously you had a bit of a reaction to that statement. What?
It's the following statement too. Can Iron use the moon as a bomb? It will be the mightiest military move in history in the next issue of Shadow Comics. Do you know what kind of issues using the moon as a bomb would be? Now, I'm assuming they're on Jupiter at this point in time, since that's where the story took place. For some reason, Jupiter has a solid surface in this world. But even then, some of Jupiter's moons are pretty big. Like, they're comparable to being the size of a planet, right? We're the biggest planet size, like rocky planet surface in our solar system. But like some of Jupiter's moons are comparable to the size of like Mars, right? So that like dropping a planet onto the surface of an area or whatever, the yeah, if the moon was gone, volcanoes would erupt. We're not even just talking about if the moon was gone. We're talking about using it as a weapon, as like a bomb onto the surface of something. You would have, even as it comes in, all kinds of catastrophic weather effects and earthquakes and stuff just from the sheer gravitational pull of these two bodies getting close to each other. But the impact, assuming that Jupiter had a solid surface, would probably just shave off the surface crust layer of whatever planet you put it into. Everyone would be dead.
Whoa. Well, actually, if you think about it, though, I think Akira Toriyama kind of tried that a little bit, didn't he, in Dragon Ball?
I mean, he destroyed the moon in Dragon Ball multiple times. In Dr. Slump, an asteroid hit was going to hit the planet to kill all the dinosaurs, but Arale hit it back, and that giant asteroid became our moon. And that's also why canonically dinosaurs exist in the Dragon Ball universe alongside people. That was explained in Dr. Slump. But yeah, no, it's just having a moon or a planet fly into another planet would get rid of like the upper crust layer that all life is on. It would basically turn it back into like molten rock. It would resettle, but there would be no life left on the planet. Extinction level event.
At the very least, it would be very catastrophic.
Yes. They call them ELEs, or extinction level events. Yeah.
All right. Well, as I said, we're like, wow, we're coming up on 2 hours here, so we're gonna have to go through some of this stuff real quickly. So that's the final story we're gonna do for tonight. Of course, let me go through the real quickly here, that at least for this story. But I have a feeling I already know what you're going to say because you said quite a bit through the story here. But overall impressions of this story.
I think it's fun. It's like a cool adaptation of a scientific, like, or sci-fi novel that predates it. I have never read it. I only know a lot of the stuff that kind of miniseries novel brought into sci-fi. So I don't know how accurate this is, whether they were just coming up with their own plots or whatever using the character or not. It's wild. I don't know if I like some of the ideas in it, but as a story, it's fun. It has good pacing. It's got good art for the time too. So it's still good. It's just a scientific marvel, you know.
I guess it's one of those stories where we can say that we kind of got a new definition to the term science fiction, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think with a lot of these stories that it happens quite a bit, where it seems like we get a new definition of the term science fiction.
Yeah, that's why like science fiction is a broader term. Inside of that, I have a smaller term that I use called science fantasy, and I think this might fall into science fantasy. The original book I don't think was supposed to, especially because like a lot of that stuff is used in more grounded science fiction later. But
Uh-huh.
wanting to crash a moon into a planet and thinking which actually is Tefel. What was Tefel? I'm trying to remember. It's not like, is there a space station? Are we trying to crash a moon into a space station? That's less of a problem. But if Tefel was like a military base on the other side of the planet or whatever, that is science fantasy area, because that is killing everyone on the planet.
All right. So, anything more? Anything more specific you want to say on this story?
Not really.
All right. So now, of course, before we get into this weekend in Nietzsche history, of course, before we get into that segment, the last part of course, the quote unquote comic book review section of the night or the show. So we went through 3 features tonight. The Shadow, the Talking Toad, and Arn Monroe. Of the 3 features, which one did you either that you liked the best or made the best impression upon you?
Well, I mean, I was already biased towards the Shadow going into this, but also it's the Shadow. It was the best one.
Oh, give you a reason.
Right. I had the most compliments towards it too as we were reading, but it had the best art. It had the best pacing and writing. A lot of this stuff are adaptations, right? Like I said, going into this, looking at the titles, a lot of these were like pulps or novels and stuff before they were comics. So it was also the one that, as far as my familiarity with it, was adapted the best too. So it just kind of got good marks across the board, as you expect. It's the Shadow.
All right, and the counter to that question, of course, which of the remaining 2, which did you like the least, or made the least positive impression, and on you, and your reasoning for it?
So it was actually not Iron Monroe, despite all the stuff that I complained at the very end right there, because that was just. Actually, that last complaint's not nitpicky, but that was more of just like, this doesn't work in reality type stuff. Storytelling, I think it was still better than the Talking Toad. Not even that I had that many criticisms towards it. I think all these stories were pretty strong, but I think the Talking Toad was probably the weakest across the board of them.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because like last week when I was going through this portion of the show with Apex, we read some good stories there where it was hard, particularly when you're talking about the idea of because I always ask, okay, which one did you like the best? Which one did you like the least? Obviously, we had a little bit harder time, and this week you're kind of in the same boat there. You're having a little bit more of a issue with figuring out which one you kind of liked the least or made the least impression. So, which probably goes towards the idea too, that as compared to maybe when you started doing this with me, when you started co-hosting with me, you guys started where there was a lot more drastic a difference in the stories than there is now, when we're doing these comparative.
Well, I also imagine that this comic particularly, because of all of the already established names that are involved in it before this comic is even made, probably had a higher budget. I know some of the writers of the stories before they were comics were also involved in the comic itself. So this is just like almost introducing a higher caliber comic into things, right? Yeah. This is like a premiere event happening. But like, even going on to the Iron Monroe, one thing I am consistent about is with sci-fi, I'm never going to knock sci-fi down because it's not scientifically accurate even to what people knew at the time, because then I'd be knocking down most of sci-fi in general, right? I'm just trying to look at it like, what is it from a storytelling perspective?
Right. Well, I mean, science fiction, the whole idea of science fiction, it's, a lot of it is maybe some wishful thing or maybe some scientific theories out there that just haven't been, have not been either proven or disproven as of
Yeah,
yet,
and
right?
there's obviously stronger and weaker examples too, right? Because you're always looking for something that doesn't exist yet, but maybe based on your understanding, it might exist. Like Jules Verne is one of the most classic examples that he predicted so many things because he was somebody who followed science. Is like, well, it looks like this is where things are going, right?
Mm-hmm.
He predicted the moon landing before it even happened, and even kind of close to how we would get there. And there are a lot of people along those lines who have more grounded science fiction. But then there's some people that, like I said, science fantasy, where they just like, I don't even really care where science is going. Let's just like throw things at the wall.
Yeah, I heard you talking
Yeah.
about Ian Monroe as one of the first big space heroes of the time period there.
Yeah, yeah.
And when you were talking about that earlier, and I was listening, when I was away, um, it did remind me of course, a couple of names that we've talked about on here before. John Carter of Mars and
Yeah, that was a big sci-fi.
and Buck Rogers.
Yeah.
So that
A lot
kind
of
of
big ones. Flash Gordon would eventually come into that as well. And
yeah. All right, so we're done with the comic book portion of the show. So I hope everybody enjoyed the stories. I know probably didn't get through quite as many stories as I initially thought we would, but then again, we also were kind of looking over, what's going on. Yeah. So I'm hoping everybody enjoyed their little trek back to 1940 through the worlds of Shadow Comics and United Feature Syndicate. Of course, next week we're starting our coverage of the June stuff, and I'll get into all that. June 19th, where I'll get into all that in a moment. Because, of course, the thing we have to do before we close out, of course, is with today being Sunday, June the 22nd, 2025. Let's go ahead and take a look back at this weekend in niche history. History! So, as soon as I just kind of double check on some stuff here. Alrighty then. Alright. So, first up, I'm going to head back to yesterday. First up, heading back 70 years ago yesterday, back to 1955. Year 1955. On yesterday's date, back in 1955, 70 years ago yesterday, up in Salem, Oregon. Up in Salem, Oregon, Ivan Kamaroff defeated Luther Lindsay for the NWA Pacific Northwest title. So on yesterday's date, 70 years ago in Salem, Oregon, up in the Pacific Northwest Territory, owned by Don Owens, Ivan Kamaroff defeated Luther Lindsay for the NWA Pacific Northwest Heavyweight Championship. And of course, now we move on to the next piece of niche history, as it were, moving ahead to the year 2020. So just 5 years ago today, on this date, 5 years ago today, or I'm not sorry, not today, yesterday, 5 years ago yesterday, 5 years ago yesterday, um, the second season of Ascendance of a Bookworm from Ajia-do Animation Works completed its second season 5 years ago yesterday. So 5 years ago yesterday, Ajia-do's Animation Works second season of Ascendance of a Bookworm completed its second season run on yesterday's date 5 years ago. So getting ready to move on to today's date, as it were. Let's check more time here. Let's see. So 90 years ago today, on this date, 90 years ago today, as soon as I pull that up, of course. This day, 90 years ago. On this date, 90 years ago today, Leon Schlesinger, let's see, Warner Brothers, Buddy's Bug Hunt, which was a Looney Tunes cartoon featuring Buddy, their second star of the series, premiered on this date 90 years ago. It was, of course, supervised by Jack King, musical direction from Norman Spencer. It was produced by Leon Schlesinger Studios. Of note, this was actually, I believe, the first cartoon where Acme was actually referenced on screen, where you actually saw a banner for the Acme Corporation on screen. This is the first cartoon where that happened, this Buddy cartoon. So 90 years ago today, the premiere of Warner Brothers' Buddy's Bug Hunt, produced by Leon Schlesinger Studios, Leon Schlesinger Studios, premiered on this date 90 years ago. And finally, moving ahead to the year 2005, 20 years ago today, on this date 20 years ago today, as soon as I grab that, on this date 20 years ago today, the 465th issue of Mad from EC went on sale on this date back in 2005. Sold for $3.99, was 60 pages. So on this date back in 2005, the 465th issue of Mad from EC went on sale on newsstands on this date back in the year 2005. So with that, I do thank everybody for being here. Now, before we go, of course, as we wrap things up, we close things out. And Metal, if you can stick around for a couple moments after the show for post-show, that'd be appreciated. Of course, before we head out, before I do the final announcements, stuff like that, Metal, I want to hand the floor off to you if you want to, do any promotion for anything you're doing this week. Any final shout outs you want to do. You know the shtick, right?
Yeah. Well, it's just the same stuff I said earlier. If you like these kind of shows, you want to hear somebody ramble about stuff, you can catch me on Mondays and Thursdays at 9 Central over on the Vomitorium Live for Super Serial Showtime and Game Central Junction on their respective days. You can also find my works of fiction over at xdynamuschaos.com, where we've got a mix of things. Hey, I mean, we were reading about like pulp stuff earlier today, just in comic form. If you like pulps, I've got web novels up there. If you want to see comic adaptation of some of it, they're up there too. You could literally spend hours on the website. And that's it.
All right. So with that being said, I thank everybody for being here tonight. Of course, we'll be back here tomorrow with our usual. We'll be back here tomorrow at, of course, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 Eastern, 7 Central. With more niche news coverage, where I'll go over articles, get you all caught up on the happenings in the world of wrestling as well and get do our usual This Day in Niche History. And then, of course, next Sunday, I'll be starting the coverage of June of 1940. So we'll be doing some DC stuff there, as we always do. We always start out with DC, Marvel, and continue on. Next week, though, I'll probably be on my own this time. But we'll still we'll read some comics, do some commentary. You guys know the shtick, right? So with that, I hope to see everybody back here tomorrow. Bye.